Welcome back to Movie Summary. Today we are diving into a film called Wild Things Foursome. The movie starts with a party happening in the heart of Miami. Carson is playing a game he calls Rachel, who comes out of the pool. At this moment, Shane arrives on a boat. So confident, Carson wants to race him and even bet $10,000. But Rachel doesn't approve that. He is the king of the party and keeps talking trash to Shane.
Sweetie, it'll take 10 minutes.
As Carson gets ready, Shane declines and instead gives the wheel to Brandy. Both boats go for the race. Carson loses and Rachel leaves. A man come back to his house, shocked to see the party. Rachel, Carson, Brandy and Shane sits together. We learns that Brandy's mother cleaned Rachel's house when they were younger. Carson tried to do small talk, but Rachel is visibly mad that Brandy is here. She leaves. The old man enters with his assistant and wants the entire house to be arrested for trespassing. He is shocked at the damages the party did to his house. The old man ends up being Carson's father. He calls his son and is disappointed in him. He then sees Shane and asks Carson if he invited him to piss him off. We learn that Shane's dad screwed him from a lot of money. He wants the place cleaned by the morning, or he will cut him off. A little bit later, Carson and Brandy are playing a game. Getting closer, they both kiss. A girl from across the room sees it and is shocked. The next day, that girl tells it to Rachel. Carson arrives with flowers and Rachel confronts him. She forgives him, but tell him if she finds out they did more than kissing, they are done. A cop then shows up and takes Carson. They then announce him that his father is dead. We are then shown what happened. He was racing and crashed. We then see Detective Frank inspecting the car. He finds an old piece unusual on this new car. Meanwhile, at the funeral, the assistant wants to talk to Carson when he is ready about the will.
George, can you give me a few days? I don't think I can right now.
He reveals that his father put all the money in a trust for Carson. With the assistant as executive, he can take a little bit for living expenses. But Carson has to wait until he is 30 years old. Carson isn't happy as when his mother passed, the will wasn't the same. He adds that more money can be given if Carson gets married. Rachel storms out. She is mad that Carson doesn't want to get married. Meanwhile, Detective Frank shows the piece to a mechanical engineer. He told by the engineer that the night before the crash, the car ended up in Shane's garage. It's odd because the father hated Shane. They go to Shane's garage, and the detective wants to see the surveillance cameras. They rewind to the night before, but they realize the time code jumped 2 hours, and the part he wanted to see is missing. We then see Rachel and Carson. She apologizes for her reaction. They kiss. At this moment, Detective Frank knocks on the door. Carson opens and he arrests him for the rape of Brandy. He is shocked, saying she is lying. We then see Brandy talking in a press conference, repeating that Carson raped her. She even brings Rachel's friend who saw them kiss and says she saw the rape. Carson gets a visit from George, the assistant, and Rachel. George thinks it's better to pay her off because it can go far. Carson asks about the will, but George repeats it's tight and can be used for medical emergencies, school or marriage. Rachel thinks they have no choice then to get married. Carson agrees. The next day, Carson and George are sitting across Brandy and her lawyer. They offer her to settle. She wants $25 million. They offer $2 million. George offers her $5 million, then presents a briefcase of $100,000 to her as first payout. She takes it and goes to a hotel room. Carson then arrives to the room, and we realize they are in this together.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Then Rachel shows up. They were all in this together. They then all make love. During the act, Rachel's friend who was them kissing shows up, and now they all four make love. Days later, Detective Frank goes to meet Shane. He reveals that it was Brandy who asked to store Carson's dad's car in his garage. And why would she do that? Asks Detective Frank. Shane has no idea. Frank then goes to see Brandy. She just confirms that the dad hated Shane's father for some deal in the past. Worry, she goes to see Rachel and tell her about the detective. She feels also that Rachel is screwing her. If anything happened to Carson, she inherits everything, while Brandy is still stuck in her same little house. Rachel says to wait until Carson reaches 30 to hit the jackpot. Carson and Rachel gets married as they see a pissed off Brandy in the horizon. After the wedding, Detective Frank shows up. He is surprised that Carson chose to hang out with Shane, knowing his dad hated him. Before leaving, the detective says that no one is off his radar.
You rest assured, young man, I will find your father's killer.
Minutes later, a panicked Carson thinks he knows. They question if Brandy may tell the cops everything. They agree on taking care of her tonight. Detective Frank confirms the piece was never supposed to be in the dad car. Rachel meets Brandy, and tell her that Carson is scheming, and wants all the money for himself. She tell Brandy that they have to get rid of Carson tonight, so she can inherit everything. Detective Frank then goes to search for Brandy's mother. He finds her. She reveals to him that her and Rachel went to school together, best friends. He realizes they lied about the story of Brandy's mum cleaning Rachel's rich house in the past. She also reveals they were spending time at a wooden cabin and had plans of finding rich husbands one day. Detective then goes to that cabin. There, he searches around and finds articles of Carson. Outside, he inspects a car nearby and have the feeling that the piece found in the dad's car belongs to that car. Hours later, Carson arrives at the hotel. He is very anxious. Both girls are inside. Rachel opens the door. They start making love like usual, then Carson tries to strangle Brandy. Rachel points a gun. Brandy thinks she will kill Carson, but she lets him finish her. She then goes to kill Carson, but he realizes that and fights her. Brandy takes the gun and shoots Carson. Right after that, Rachel writes on a computer as if it was Carson admiring to kill his dad, and now he would commit suicide. The next day, the detective read it. Frank is not convinced. The local police decides the case is closed. He then goes to pay a visit to Rachel. He shows her the article found in the cabin. She says it doesn't prove anything. Brandy then receives a phone call from Rachel telling her about the article. Brandy wants to meet. She is panicked. Rachel arrives to the cabin with a gun in her bag. While they kiss, Rachel puts her hand in her bag to take the gun, but Brandy points one at her first. Brandy actually thinks that the $5 million is enough for her.
I've been thinking that $5 million is plenty for me.
She shoots but misses her. Rachel runs away. Brandy chases her. Rachel uses her ring to trap Brandy, and knocks her out. Brandy crawls. Rachel grabs a rock ready to finish her, but an old man arrives. At the police station, Rachel comes to see Detective Frank. She tells him Brandy tries to kill her. He receives a note, and Brandy is in the next room. We learn Brandy's father killed himself after losing everything. Carson family took over Miami. Rachel says Brandy was originally the one who wanted to do it. Both girls blame each other. They both do say that Carson killed his dad. The boss can't let them stay in the police station, because those are not convictions, but accusations. Brandy then tells the detective that all the evidences on Rachel are in the cabin. Police then show up the cabin. Once inside the cabin, he finds the discs with the deleted tape from the security camera from the night before the accident. It shows Carson and Rachel bringing the car, installing the extra piece. He also finds Rachel's short covered in blood from Carson from that night he died. Rachel is then arrested. Later, we see Frank is having his last day on the job. He is getting retired. He then leaves, go on a boat, on which Brandy waits for him. They were in this together. They both leave the town by boat. During the trip, Frank says he doesn't trust Brandy. He doesn't want to make love to her. They go to the island, split the money, and never see each other again. She grabs a knife and stabs him, then pushes him in the water. We then see a beach, on which George is sitting, transfers $154 million. Then, he goes to meet Brandy, saying now he has access to all the money from the dad, as well as Brandy who will be his wife. He then shows her an article, stating that Rachel killed herself behind bars. As she leaves with boat, her boat explodes. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and check our other movies summaries.